Welcome. Leadership class, this is Kim Kuchenbrod. I'm sorry I can't be with you there today, but the Remain Advantage team thought we would try to record this for you so you wouldn't miss out on this fantastic team building activity. Today we're going to figure out what makes you tick and what ticks you off. So we're going to figure out your personality. I have two Remain Advantage staff individuals who are going to help me with the slides and moving them forward, but you can also refer to these handouts that were provided to you earlier. The next slide, please. Okay, understanding your correct personality is going to make a difference in your communication style, your teamwork, how you communicate with even your family members. How many of you have a child who you wonder if they came from the right parents because you just have a hard time communicating with them? Go ahead, raise your hands. Okay, nothing's wrong with them. They just communicate a little bit differently. And when you master your communication styles, you'll be able to work it so you can get along better with your child, with your spouse, with your boss, and your coworker. Communication also impacts your career choices. It also impacts workplace, education, and teamwork. Next slide, please. Okay, I had the Remain Advantage team hand out this little slide here in case you cannot see it up on the board. But sometimes your communication style is automatically decided by your first impression, okay? You see yourself one way, your coworkers and people around you see you in a different way. So, how many of you see the old hag? Anybody see the old hag? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you saw the young maiden? Raise your hands. How many of you don't see anything? That's all right. All right, so let's put out, if you saw the old hag, let me point out the points of her. First of all, she's wearing a large stole. The red line is her grimaced lips, her pointy chin. Follow it up, her pointed nose. She has a wart on the end of her nose, her eyes, and she has a white cloak over the top of her head. Now, do you see the old hag? Okay. Now, for those of you who saw the young maiden, she's looking away from you. She has on the meat stole. Her neckline, the red that you're seeing is her choker, and what was the hag's nose is actually the jawline of the young maiden, her ear, her button nose, her hair, and the cloak on it. Okay, everybody see that? Let's go to the next slide. How many of you see a duck? How many of you see a rabbit? Okay, just look at it backwards. If you're looking at it this way, you're seeing the rabbit with its ears laying back. If you look at it from the other direction, it's a duck. Again, first impressions on how you communicate with someone determines how they see you, but are they really seeing the true you? Okay, next slide. All right, we all have 4 communication styles in our makeup. Some of us have a preferred 1 category, some 2, and chameleons have all 4. And it's okay to have one of these personalities that is stronger than the other one, okay? Like, for example, someone may be a gold blue, or a green orange, or a green gold. And once we go through this process today, you will find out your preferred communication color, all right? And this is going to help you through your leadership training and as you move forward in your team building activities, all right? Next slide. Okay, I've been doing this probably for 15 years now, and as a certified trainer in this area, the colors and the results do not change very much. 42% of the entire world is an orange personality. 43% is gold. And the most misunderstood groups are the blues, who are 9% and 6% of the green personalities, okay? So we're going to go into a deeper dive onto this to find out, number one, which is your personality, and we're going to increase and kind of polish up your own communications. Next slide. These are my daughters. Very interesting, very dynamic young ladies. It's very interesting how we have to communicate differently as a parent with them when they were young, and how we communicate with them as older parents and young adults. As you can see, both of them have been involved in archery for and very accomplished archers. Katie, our oldest one, she is a gold-blue personality, meaning if we needed to correct her or discipline her with her, our communication style with her was we would just have to give her the mom and dad look. And the tears would come. She would say, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, it won't happen again, and it never happened again. If we asked her to do something, she got on it right away, made sure it was done, made sure that we saw that the task was done, and she would want to be recognized for that task. Allie, this is Kate, this is Allie. Allie, on the other hand, was that child that, as adults, if we say, if I had this child first, I would have never had another one. This is Allison. Allie was very stubborn. She would do her chores when she was ready, not a moment before. She would stand toe to toe and argue with her parents. We couldn't give her the mom and dad look. It didn't work for her. Instead, we had to get nose to nose with her and almost threaten this child in order to get her to respond. Let's look at it from a coaching perspective. My husband and I are archery coaches. With this daughter, Katie, she would go out. She knew she had to have 4 hours of practice a day in order to pay off for all of her tournaments. She was accomplished. She was on the junior world archery team. She's traveled nationally and internationally, but she had to put in her 4 hours of practice every day. Allie, on the other side, we would have to actually pull her out there and say, you're going to practice. She would argue with us and say, why? What's the point? She was a natural at archery. So what she did was she would go out, she'd pull her bow, she'd hit the 10 ring every time, say, okay, I'm done. Do not need to practice. When the two girls get together and comparison, Katie knew that Allie was a very strong-willed individual. Katie, on the other hand, Allie knew what buttons to push to set Katie off and bring her to tears very quickly, okay? But they grew up in the same house, same value system, same parents, everything. The rules never changed. What changed for us in order to help them and nurture them into very young adults today was how we communicated with them. Our communication style for one did not work with the other one. Next slide. Okay, before we're going to do a little exercise in a few minutes, and we're going to figure out how many of you, what are your needs, your joys, your strengths, and your values. And this is going to be determined by a test that we're going to take. It's not like a test, but it is a little survey that you're going to take. And the Vermillion Advantage staff are going to pass out a booklet. So if they would go ahead, if they haven't done that, go ahead and hand out the booklet for me. Okay. Okay, now that it's already been passed out, I want you to go ahead and I want you to open up the book, and inside the book are some perforated cards that look like this. I want you to go ahead at this time, and I want you to go ahead and pull those cards out. I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, now I want you to put the 4 cards, holding up in a sample here. I want you to pull these 4 cards out, and I want to set up to you to set them in front of you, and I want you to put them in order. Most like you to least like you. and I'll give you a couple of minutes to review the cards and put them in the order. Again, most like you to least like you. All right, inside your book on page 3 is a set of numbers, or a set of boxes that you're going to put your numbers in. I want you to go across, and if blue was your top card, I want you to score it as a 4. And if your gold was your 2 card, 1 for green and 3 for orange. So go ahead and fill in your scores there. Once you've done that, I want you to turn the cards over, and I want you to read the cards. And once again, put them in order, most like you to least like you. I'll give you a few moments for that. All right, now that you've done that, again, go back and put them, your scores, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 4, 2, 1, 3, whatever your score was. I want you to fill in the second row where it says card/text. Okay? Now, inside your booklet is a series of questions. They start on page 4 and look like this. Okay? This is very important. These instructions are very important, so follow them very carefully. Okay, so you have a series of questions. I want you to score a response for each question, but you will label it the same as you did as your cards, 4, 3, 2, 1. Which one is most like you to least like you? Do not choose just one. Do not put an X. Every response should be scored with a 4, 3, 2, or 1. Okay? So we're going to give you a few minutes, and you'll continue on page 4, 5, and then stop. Now that you've done the survey, what I would like for you to do is go back to pages 4 through 5, and I want you to add up the total score for your responses to letter C. Put that number in this box and continue on for letter D, B, and A. Once you've entered that, then I want you to add up your total scores. All right? Now, how many of you, once you've got your total scores figured out, your highest score is your preferred color of communication? So, how many of you scored a blue? Raise your hand. How many of you scored high in gold? Raise your hand. How many of you scored high in green? Raise your hand. And finally, those who scored high in orange, raise your hand. Now, the Vermilion Advantage team can see the color group that is your preference. But some of you may have a couple of questions, so let me go ahead and address those at this point. How many of you had 2 colors that were very close to each other or equaled that color? Okay? If so, which was your top card score? Because that will determine your color. Okay? Did anyone in here score within a couple of points of all 4? If you did, you're a chameleon. And the reason why we look at the chameleons, it's very hard to determine which mode of communication that you are in at that time we're talking to you. Many of these positions are police officers. Many of these people are EMTs, emergency room personnel, and military. Their minds have been trained to adjust their communication styles based on the current situation that they're in. Okay? So, I'm going to go back to the blue group. Anyone in this group who had a score of 40 or above? Okay, if you had a score of 40 or above, the Vermilion Advantage team is looking at that. The individual with the highest blue score will be the leader, team leader, in our next activity. How many of you scored gold? Okay, if you're a gold, how many of you scored higher than a 40? Raise your hand and share with you the scores with the Vermilion Advantage staff. Whoever scored the highest will be the leader, and so forth in the green group and in the orange group. But please raise your hands if you scored high in green, and then again if you scored high in your orange. All right? So, let's go to the next slide. Okay. Okay, now before we go any further to talk about each of these personalities, as you can see on my table here, and the Vermilion Advantage team is going to have these displayed for you, I have put 3 prompts up there, okay? I want you to figure out who represents these particular props that I have up here. These 3 individuals actually truly understand personality. Okay, before we go into a real deep detail on the personalities, I wanted to refer to some props that I have back here on the table, and the Vermilion Advantage team has probably got them out on display on a table in front of you right now. When you truly understand and master communication styles, some individuals have made millions and have based their whole career field on making communicating more effectively with their families, with their clients, with their customers. Okay, so I have 3 prompts back here. I have a pair of shoes, I have a pair of white gloves, and I have a hat. Who do they represent? Okay, if you know, go ahead and share with the team. All right, moving forward, the red shoes. The red shoes are from The Wizard of Oz, from Frank L. Baum. Frank L. Baum, by the way, has, under The Wizard of Oz, has 4 main characters: Dorothy, the Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. Each one of them are dominant in one of the personalities, okay? Dorothy is a gold personality. She's responsible for getting home. She wants to make sure everyone's getting along. She follows the rules. The Lion is an orange personality. He's courageous, he's a risk taker, and he thinks about the rules later on. The Tin Man, what was he wanting? He wanted a heart. He has a strong blue personality. He's more of a people filler. And with that, he's always wanting to make sure that the people around him feel wonderful. You cannot see it on a blue person, but if you can imagine that they have these little antennas coming off of the top of their head, these are their feeling antennas. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what those antennas do later on. And then we have the last character, the Scarecrow. And what did the Scarecrow want? He wanted a brain. That is your green personality, okay? Did you figure out the white gloves? Because this one's a little tough. But there's a certain character that always wears white gloves. And no, it's not the Phantom of the Opera. It is Mickey Mouse. Walt Disney. Walt Disney, have you ever been to Disney World, Disneyland, any of the Disney parks? If you have, think back to the time you were there and think of all the different areas of Disney World. You have Adventureland, you have Space World, you have the Small World, you have Main Street, and so forth. Can you imagine going to Disney World and the only thing you did was to go and ride Dumbo the elephant, sit in a teacup, and go through It's a Small World over and over again? How many of you would be bored out of your mind? Many of you would be, okay? So what Disney did is he wanted to build an amusement park or an entertainment places that would match every personality. So there was always something for everyone in all of his parks. And of course, the most famous hat over the last 10 to 20 years is the Sorting Hat. Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. This this author, you have how many houses of witchcraft and wizardry that kept the audiences for many, many years? You have Hufflepuff, you have Ravenclaw, you have Gryffindor, and you have Slytherin. All of them are based off of one of these 4 personalities and areas of communication, okay? And as you can see, and if you reflect back, every one of these individuals have made a fortune once they've mastered communicating. I'm not saying that you all are going to become millionaires after you've learned all this, but it's going to enrich your lives enough that when you are communicating with your children, your spouse, your coworkers, your boss, you're going to end up being a better communicator, and your results in the end are going to be better for you in your career. Okay, so as I was talking about earlier, those feelers coming off, blues, remember blues make up 9% of the whole population. So let's talk about our blues. How many of the blues, go ahead and raise your hand. How many of you cry very easily at movies? How many of you, your favorite channel on cable or dish is the Hallmark's channel? How many of you, when I say, that are blue, when I say family, who do you consider to be your family? So we're going to pause here for a minute, and the Vermilion Advantage team is going to ask, who do you consider to be family? We'll get right back with you.